I'm Jess, and this will be my first garden tour. It is April 15th. We are a little bit less than a month out from being able to plant outside, but I thought I would take you guys through what I have under cover in the greenhouse here. Outside today we had about 36 degrees and some snow flurries because it's just warm enough. It's already melted, which is great. I'm hoping that in a few short weeks that won't even be on the forecast anymore. In here, I have some things that were started last fall, and I have some things that were started this spring, and about half the things will be moving out once it's safe to plant things out of doors. John the toad came in with the dirt that we moved in with the garden beds. He was hibernating in it throughout the winter. And then he scared the crap out of me when he appeared out of the dirt. I saw his throat moving and I absolutely squealed. That was perhaps not my most graceful moment, but there he stays. I'm interested to see if he will continue to stay here and eat bugs or if he's going to run away. I've got some cucumbers. So this will be my first season with the silver slicer. I've never tried him before. Got a little bit of spotting on the leaves, but we'll hang on and see if that's gonna stay the same. And then I also started some cucumbers directly in the dirt. That's not normally something I do in my region because it tends to take so long for those things to mature. But with growing undercover this year, I thought that I would try it and see how this turned out. But because it's only 36 degrees outside, getting down into the 30s tonight, I'm going to put my little makeshift cloche on the top of that. Here I just have my soil probe going into the dirt. I've got this about a foot away from the edge of the garden bed so that I can see how cold the temperature is closer to the exterior compared to further in. I've got another probe down there on the messy side of the greenhouse. Next up are glacier tomatoes. I don't normally grow determinates either, so anytime I do, I mark it, put a little D on the end of the tag. And then I've got a trellising system here. Because I'm growing under cover, I wanted to dangle these from the roof of the greenhouse, basically. So these twines are tied to this metal cable, which is attached to these plastic hanging basket hooks. So these came with the Climapod greenhouse. It's my first season with these. They're very easy to move. They just slide in. You adjust them, and that's where they'll stay. So if this isn't at the right level, I can always lift it up or down. Pretty easy to adjust. I left some play in the cable because it's near this window, and then the plants, the weight of the plants should self-regulate the tension of that line. So I've seen this in a couple of gardening videos for people that have polycrubs or polytunnels, and I thought, well, why not try it this way? So the glacier tomato has this twine wrapped around, and as he grows taller, I'm just going to swirl him around the twine. Glacier tomato was bred for northern climates, so it should be producing a crop sooner than some of its other friends. Then I have Firminios, plum tomato. This is also determinate. I did the same sort of trellising here. Got the same variety back there. And then you'll notice that I have them staggered in a diamond pattern. So they're a little bit offset from each other. This should help with airflow. Should also help me compare varieties. I've got them side by side. And then I have another cucumber here. This one should be the Mini-Me. Yeah. The Mini-Me F1 cucumber. These are supposed to be itty bitty, and I really want to pickle a bunch of tiny cucumbers. I think those would be delicious. Also going to put a little hat on him. Squashes don't like to be cold. And then I got a little overexcited. I planted some of these summer sunrise in early March, and they died. And I realized I didn't have any backups. So sometimes when you push the envelope, it doesn't work out. But I started some from seed. I don't normally direct sow tomatoes, but these are absolutely tomato seedlings. He's got another friend right here. These are some lettuces. I've also got some Genovese basil planted right here. That's also a Genovese basil. I just pricked these out of a little container. So I picked out itty bitty ones, I dropped them in. I've got a variety of leek here that I actually planted last season. They've been overwintering here. The thing I've learned about them growing in the greenhouse is that they don't necessarily grow larger. They just sort of stay steady. They hold the status quo in here, and then as soon as it started to get more sunlight and warm up a bit, they started actively growing again, or visibly so. In the warmer portion of the summer, I'm going to move these guys out of here and put them to the bed that's actually behind here and to the right of the dog kennel. So the next tomato that's up is also a determinate. This is a Purple Heart. This is also new to me, same trellising system. And then I've got a Japanese black truffle that's next. So I've got one hiding behind this chive here. So that's a Japanese black truffle. He's gotten a little bit loose on his trellising system, but that's all right. And then he's got his twin back here as well. More leeks that'll move. What's neat is this chive was planted at the same time at the end of last summer as this chive. And because he's closer to the door over here, there are many less blossoms. And over here, I already have some blooms. And so I think I accidentally got a little bit of succession sowing going on without actually succession sowing. If you aren't familiar with succession sowing, it's when you plant things not all at once. You stagger your planting. So instead of getting one really big harvest, you're getting a series of smaller harvests. My family that lives here is only the two of us, so I don't need a whole lot of something unless I'm intending to can it or preserve it or freeze it or dehydrate or something else. Having a little bit over a period of time works much better for us, and that's something that I'm trying to get a better handle on consistently. Next up, I've got another tomato. This is Paul Robeson. I've got him there. And then I've got German pink tomatoes. All my tomatoes here are set up on the same sort of trellising system. I did remember to put labels on all of these so that I can do a comparison of each type of tomato. You'll notice that the leaf pattern on German pinks is not quite the same as some of our other tomatoes like Cherokee Purple. I've grown these outside a couple different years in a row. I really like how many of them I've gotten. They are prone to splitting and cracking if I don't water them consistently. So I'm hoping that by having it undercover, I'll be able to control that watering a little better. There's my John the Toad little pond so he can soak if he needs to. Back here, I've got onions I started from seed. They're hiding a little bit. So those are blush onions. They're the only ones I started from seed because I did not do a very good job of inventorying what I had before I placed my order. So I will definitely be getting some sets from the garden center this spring. Next to the Cherokee Purples, I've got black Krim tomatoes. Notice that these knots aren't tied tightly around the base because this base will expand to get a little bit broader. I already have some suckers or arms forming in the armpits here. So I have to be starting to pay some more attention and prune those as they go. And then as they get taller, just wrap them around the twine. Here's another leek. This will be going out into the main garden bed. It's neat to notice that this was planted at the same time as his friend back here by John the Toad's pool. And these are much smaller, so I'm interested to see what they do when they get migrated out to the yard. This is some bulb fennel. It smells very much like licorice. So if I pinch some of this off, it's got a fun licorice scent. I'm not even that fond of licorice, but the fresh smell of this leaf can't really be beat. We found out that we enjoy bulb fennel. It's not really common cuisine for us in my region of the upper Midwest. But if we slice it up, put it on pizza, put it with pasta in a white sauce, very good. I try to push the envelope a little bit and planted out some tomatoes under cover here about mid-March, which is way too early for outside for sure. The date of my last frost is May 6th, so a couple months too early. But I had a casualty that I also didn't have backups for, and that's the Frank's Iranian tomato. I did start more of them in seed trays. Not too many, but enough to replace the ones that I had killed with my negligence. But it's my first year with a greenhouse, and so I wanted to see how far I could push the envelope. It wasn't very far this spring, but... So, Frank's Iranian, not currently here, but his tags are marking his resting place. Sorry, Frank. Other things that are new to me this season, these are wonderberries. I think they're a type of huckleberry. I've never grown these, but they are an annual fruit. And you can see that it's already starting to give little fruits. There's some more back here. And over here. So in the spirit of trying to be better about succession sowing, I started more wonderberries as well, even though I have what looks to be going to be a good crop of these, especially for the first season I'm growing them. What I remember the packet saying is that I have to be careful to harvest them when they are very dark and very clearly ripe. I'm assuming prior to that they are less good for eating. But yeah, this is my first season with those, so I'm excited to see if I can make some delicious huckleberry jam. That would be awesome. Next to the wonderberries, I've got lychee tomatoes. These are new to me as well. They are stabby tomatoes. So I don't know if you can see. I'm gonna poke myself here. So I have to be very careful when I harvest from these. But if you have seen a tomatillo or a ground cherry, it's got a little husk-like thing on that as well. But I remember the seed packet flavor description sounding delicious. So I'm really hopeful that it is as good as it says, and it's worth all the stabby thorns. I've got more leeks over here. These are also going to move out. These should all be autumn leeks. So these are starting to size up pretty well after the several hot days we had. They will all go to the bed near the dog kennel. These leeks are more of the same, and I started them this spring. This is some lettuce that is absolutely covered in aphids. That was definitely one thing I noticed, is that in the wintertime, if I have an aphid problem, it is certainly much harder to find butterflies when it's cold. Here's some sorrel. This is also new to me, but I wanted a cold hardy lettuce type crop, and this definitely fit the bill. And then I've got some violet mustard. This one's new to me as well. This one is also infested with aphids. Gross. But all hope is not lost. It will soon be spring. And then here I have some strawberry spinach. You can see that these popsicle stick markers are not meant for the long haul. But here's strawberry spinach. That one's supposed to be pretty good as well. And then I have a Siberian watermelon. This one I'm excited for. The art pack for this was beautiful. but he also doesn't like the cold, so I'm gonna put his little hat back on. And then over here, I have a Zone 4 mini rose. When it flowers, it should be a yellow blossom. That'll be beautiful. I've got some nasturtiums starting up here, some radishes, and then I had thought that I only scattered lettuce and radishes over here, and then I got surprised by this viola. But isn't that beautiful? Look at that happy face. It's a good 10 degrees warmer in the greenhouse. It's like 46 in here, 36 outside. I'll turn the geothermal on when I leave so that it circulates the heat that it pushed into the ground back up into the greenhouse. And that's how I will keep the temperatures above freezing in here tonight. It's not anything that was designed or a system that was purchased. It was absolutely something that was put in using the piping that you would normally use for drain tile in the fields, and a fan to circulate it. It's 100 feet of tubing, 6 feet down. At my latitude, the temperature about 6 feet down is a stable 49 degrees, which is above freezing, which in the winter is really all I'm trying to do. So that was a pretty good fit. It did get freezing inside the greenhouse this past winter. However, by having the frost fabric, and then on the coldest nights, I also put greenhouse poly over the garden beds as well, and ran the fan. That was enough to keep it, or at least enough to keep the plants alive, if not to keep the greenhouse above freezing. So it was kind of surprising to learn that some of the plants could survive even below a hard freeze. Part of that was the types of plants that I had chosen. The types of plants that I picked were all frost hardy, which means that they can survive down to a frost or a hard freeze. Hard freeze is 28 degrees Fahrenheit, but other than that, a freeze would be usually around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Viola flowers are edible. They're also just really happy. Like, look at this face. Look at it. If you're a fan of Alice in Wonderland, that should look familiar to you. So because my seating area is behind my makeshift pallet shelf and currently covered in the frost fabric I'm going to need to put on before I head back inside, I wanted flowers over here so that it was a nice place to look into the garden area and enjoy. Next to those, I have some seedlings just honestly hanging out. So I've got more Genovese basil. That is a little bit too close together in that pot, but I've started so much basil that I'm not honestly super worried about it. I might move those over into bigger pots and then move them into the main garden. I might not. We'll see how much space I have left, because I have a bit of a plant problem, or rather, if I have a problem, I seem to fill it with plants. These are new to me. I got these, I traded some of my extra seedlings for these from a coworker and his wife. So this is a delicious globe. I've got a couple of those, and then I've got beefsteak, but it looks like these were started for $12 or something. So that's why they're so little, but they're super cute. They will catch up to their friends in no time, and they will probably either live outside in the main garden, or I will make them hang out in Frank's resting place. Sorry, Frank. But over here, this is going to be where my hot peppers live. So I've started that trend by having these beautiful variegated jigsaw hot peppers. I've got several of those. The germination on this went really well. Then I also have brown jalapenos. So that's one of these guys, that's this, and then I've got a couple more seedlings of it that I poked into the ground here. So I'm intending to pick up some serranos and some more just regular jalapenos and plopping those into some of my blank spaces as soon as those open up here. Which means that this is going to go. As you can see, it is beginning to bolt or go to seed. These are rutabagas, and so they are made for the cold, If I had started them sooner last fall, they would have overwintered really well, and I could basically treat the greenhouse like my pantry. What I do love that these do, and I don't know, it's not these leaves specifically that do it, but when I water in here, you can see how the dewdrops catch on the leaves. And I think that's just beautiful. The other thing I have happening here is some winter savory. This isn't a cooking herb that we would use a whole lot. I don't hear of a lot of people in my region using it either. We put it on chicken and some other meats, and it was really good. Savory, exactly as described. And then I've got more hot peppers. I've got the Sugar Rush Peach. Last year for Sugar Rush Peach, I got quite a few that were brown instead of a peach color. Tried leaving them on longer, and that was not enough. And then I've got the Lemon Drop, which I also grew last year and enjoyed. A lot of those came out pure yellow. That was also enjoyable. I've got Carentan Leeks. These will be moving to the main garden bed by the dog kennel as well. And then I've got some chamomile that I've got growing along the front here. More Carentan Leeks that I started this season. These bigger ones are from last season, but those will also move out near the dog kennel. Behind that, I've got Zeolites calendula started. I started these bigger guys inside, and then I direct seeded those. This seed's from Botanical Interests. It's a paler color calendula. It's beautiful. I use that in salves and skincare recipes. It's also an edible flower, so you can smush off the petals and put them in your salad. And then I've got one more in this area that I'm very excited about. This plant for me is about persistence. So I tried growing the pink banana squash. I think this will be my 4th year. The first year, it didn't germinate. The second year, it germinated, and then I think it was picked out by a bird. The third year, so last year, we had derecho, which is straight line winds of 100 miles per hour. Much of the garden actually survived. I lost a lot of my plastic cloches to the wind, but that was honestly understandable. I'm hoping that by doing this pink banana squash in the greenhouse this year, I will actually get to see it fruit. Because last year it survived with the derecho and then got shaded out by some corn instead. So that was also sad. But if you enjoy persistence, if you feel like you are sometimes willing to out-stubborn something, then gardening's probably your hobby, because some things don't work out, and sometimes you just have to keep trying. So if this doesn't work again this year, I'll dedicate some more space to it next year, and we'll try again. All of that to say, grow, little plant, grow. The only other thing that's going to go in this area once the leeks come out is going to be a couple of Rosa Bianca eggplants. Those are on the shelf down in the basement still, staying warm. I didn't want to risk them. I only have 2 or 3 of those. I've got another little nasturtium seed that I tucked in the soil down here. Starting out, I love how they look like little dinosaur feet. These are different types of carrots from last fall. I planted these direct about October. They are starting to actually grow. They essentially just stayed alive during the winter, held their own. They may not make a root this year if they decided that was their death and then they're going to come back for their biennial season. So if they form a flower stalk, that's honestly fine. I might leave it in there and save the seeds, or I might leave some of them there and save the seeds so that I have more carrot seed. Or I could essentially clear all of this out and just say, well, I have more space for my sweet peppers now. So that kind of depends on which of those things I'm prioritizing. Next to this, I've got some Italian oregano. I've got Greek oregano in the house. Out here I did Italian because it's more suited to my zone. The Greek oregano inside, I have it on a pot in the kitchen and dining room area on my herb wall. So because I have all of my hot peppers over there, I have all my sweet peppers close to the door here. I have a bit of an experiment going on in that of all the peppers that I started, the ones with the best germination were actually seeds that I'd saved from a orange bell pepper that I bought at the grocery store for like 73 cents. So I saved all of the seeds out of that, which was maybe 100, maybe 50, but it's a lot of food. So it is more than likely bred for something that's like hydroponic production. It is maybe not going to breed true to be an orange bell pepper like what I pulled it from. However, it will be a pepper, and it'll be a sweet pepper. So, because it had the best germination of all of my pepper seeds compared to the ones that I purchased at the store, I'm interested to see how these perform. So here are my orange bell pepper grocery store seeds. As you can see, I have an aphid problem on these as well. And that's on all of these. Especially see them on the back here. I've got more leeks here. These are Bulgarian leeks. And then I've got King of the North bell pepper here. King of the North is also bred for a short growing season. So I'm excited to see how he performs. If it's really good, then I plan on doing more of him next year as well. These also have a pretty serious aphid problem. But I already have a ladybug on the case. So I was considering purchasing some ladybugs online. I came out the other day and happened to see that one there. And hopefully she'll invite all of her friends and they will have an aphid eating party. I've got more Italian oregano here. This spreads. Apparently it's related to mint, which I did not initially know, but the square stem is a good indicator of that, as well as the leaf pattern. This is more King of the North. I've got, this should be a purple snap pea coming up. That's what I put over here. I need to get him some twine so he has something to climb up as well. And then this is a black futsu squash. This is new to me as well. It's got a really neat pattern to the squash. So because I live in zone 4, depending on the map I look at, I'm 4A or 4B, so it's honestly just easiest for me to assume that I could get down to 4A, which is negative 30 Fahrenheit. Because if I assume worst case scenario, then I'm prepared if it's better. And that includes fruit trees that I want to put in, fruit bushes, any of that. But I have such a short growing season of 120 days that if I can find a bunch of winter or storage squashes that I enjoy eating, my spouse enjoys eating, then I can store those in a cool, dry, fairly dry, dark place during the winter, and we can pull from that when it's not actively growing season. My hope is that with the greenhouse that we installed this past year, that I'll be able to start a bunch of root vegetables, cool season salads. When it's cold and dark and miserable out, I want to be able to just come out and find something green, fresh, and things that I can't normally get in the store. Oftentimes I'll taste something at the store and it's entirely different from how it tastes fresh grown. So it's not just that the nutrition changed, it's that the flavor is not usually as good as when you've harvested from the backyard and you're bringing it in and you're cooking it right then. So we have covered all of the items in the greenhouse beds themselves. I'm going to go over the seedlings that are started. All right. Set my tea down. It's noticeably colder in here after I shut the fan off. It's wild. I did a vlog the other day where I've got the saffron moved into these window boxes. I had just put them into small terracotta pots so that they had some place they could be growing because they were starting to sprout when they were shipped to me. So this front tray has a lot of flowers. So I've got a couple different kinds of cosmos. I've never grown cosmos before either, but I'm looking forward to that. I've got a really neat idea for what I'm doing in the bed next to the dog kennel. I've got Celiosa. It looks like a feather to me, so I noted feather here so that I would remember what it is. I got a tiger viola. I also noted this was edible so that I would remember when it became harvest time. I've got a couple different zinnias. I've got queen lime, which are coming up. I've got polar bear, it's white. Nigelia. I've got straw flower, which I've also not grown before. I've got pink dandelion. I like to call it pink dandy. I don't know why, it makes me happy. Marigolds, I started more of those. I'm going to put those underneath the tomatoes, indoors and out. And then I moved on to food. So I've got giant white kohlrabis. I'm going to tuck these into some shadier areas, a little bit of microclimate where it's a little bit cooler in the garden. I've got white kohlrabi, I've got purple kohlrabi, and then I've got some more bulb fennel. So all of these are going to go into my bed that gets sun last during the day. Still will get plenty of sun for those things to grow. And then I'm also going to put shade cloth on them so that they can avoid the harsher temperatures of summer. We're going to jump this guy because I started this tray the same day that I started this tray. So this is mostly food. I've got an orange chard in these first 3 cells, and then I've got a Vulcan or a red chard in the next 3 cells. I'm going to alternate those when I plant them. I've got more cucamelons. I say more because I wasn't sure if this tray had germinated. They take quite a bit longer than I'd anticipated to germinate. Then I've got 3 different types of kale. I've got dinosaur kale, scarlet kale, and then flowering kale. All of these types of kale are new to me. Previously, I have only grown Siberian dwarf kale, which was good, but I get tired of having the same thing. And then my spouse and I have been snacking on a lot of edamame, which is soybeans. So you take the soybeans green, you boil them about 4 minutes, strain them, and then put some salt on them. Very delicious, very nutritious, and very filling snack. So I've got 2 different types. One of them is 55 days or 50 days maturity. So I'll have it before I'll have the other one, which is like 80 days. And then in 3 weeks, I'll do another group of these, trying to keep up on my succession sowing. So when these are ready to come out, I'll have another batch that are ready to harvest. And then I've also got okra. So I've got red okra in the front here, and then I've got emerald okra in the back. And so we talked about the tomatoes I'd put out too soon and didn't have backups. Here's more Frank's Iranian. Then I've got more Summer Sunrise, which if this doesn't germinate, that's fine because I had others that did. Bronze fennel. So this is supposedly really good at keeping fleas away. And I am going to put some by the dog kennel and by where I had a bed full of flea beetles. I'm not sure if that will be treated the same, but I'm willing to find out. This is the Brightest Brilliant Rainbow quinoa from Botanical Interests. And then I've got some sesame. We use sesame in our cooking, and I wanted to harvest some of that for ourselves instead of buying it at the store. And then I've got some sage, auroch, red auroch. I'm going to put this along the edge of the garden area. Celtis or stem lettuce. I had seen this on Hugh Richards' gardening, and I'm excited to try this. It's new to me people I've talked to in my area aren't familiar with it. Apparently you can harvest the leaves like lettuce, and then you can also eat the stem. So I'm excited to see how good that is. Borage. This smells a lot like cucumber. In my head, I will one day be the kind of hostess that puts the little purple flowers from the borage in the ice cube trays, freezes them, and then I serve them with lemonade when guests come over. So I haven't done that yet because I like the idea of it apparently more than I like the act of doing it. One day I'll get better. Borage. This does self-seed in my area, but it's really easy to spot when it comes up, so if it's somewhere I don't want it, I can yank it out. I've got horehound, lettuce, amaranth, Chinese spinach, and then Japanese giant mustard. I've sowed more wonderberries, so we talked again about succession sowing, so that's all of these. I've got more peas. So these are air pruning trays, and I am trying this as an experiment, honestly. I want to see if these peas will prune their roots, and then I'll be able to pop them in the soil wherever I want them, because I want them to go on my northernmost bed where I'm putting the rest of these cool season friends. And then seeds that were started in March. I've got a mix of things. So I've got nasturtiums here. These are the Alaskan mix. These are, I think, my oldest seed for this. So we'll see if those germinate or not. Then I've got marigolds, also pretty old seed. We'll see. This is amaranth. It's, I think, Elena's rojo. Rojo is red in Spanish. I grew this one year, and I had neighbors that would come up onto my lawn and say, "What was that beautiful red flower that you had?" And so for somebody who goes to work and comes home and is just an introvert by nature, it was really nice to have the socialization come to me. So if you're into that, maybe plant a little bit of that. I saved the grain from this, and it's a higher protein grain, much like quinoa. Cucamelons. I'm going to try to train these up the tomatoes over on that corner of the bed. Nasturtiums, I've got dwarf jewel nasturtiums, and then I've got some Alaskan salmons. It looks like only one of these germinated, but there's two of these in a little tray, so when they get a little bit bigger, I will move them to the places I want them. And then I have a bunch of basil, so much basil. So this was the African basil. I've got some itty bitty seedlings. And then I've got cardinal basil. This is going to have a beautiful red flower on it, so I'm excited to put this in different places for color. Emily basil. This looks like it's got a wider leaf, or the seed packet did, so I'm excited to see how that comes out. I'm not sure how tall it will get either, so it'll be neat to plant these as a mix of things and see the different levels of basil that I get. Purple basil. This is mostly for color. I like the variation in tone here. Pluto basil. This looks a little bit like topiary bushes, honestly, and then it flowers into this cute little white flower. Bees swarm it. It's adorable. So you can eat this. You can use it as your seasoning just fine, but I mostly grow it for ornamental purposes. Tulsi or holy basil. This one I use for tea. I had another neighbor come over, and they were like, "What is that beautiful smell?" And it was this guy. Virofly spinach. I'm going to also put him in a shaded area so he can last as long as possible into the summer. Jasmine tobacco. I am very excited for jasmine tobacco. I had seen a tour, I think it was Hugh Richards' channel, that he was doing a tour, and this woman had tobacco jasmine in her polycrub, and it was used as a overnight pollinator attractor. She mentioned that the leaves had this neat texture that bugs like stuck to, and I kind of just have to see it. I want to know. So I'm going to put it in the greenhouse. I'm going to put one in the greenhouse, and then I'm going to put some just around the garden outside and see how they perform. So that's new to me. I'm very excited about it. I want to know if it does everything that she was describing. It should, but we'll find out. talked about jasmine tobacco. I've got a couple different types of aster. Peach, long peach tower aster. You know, when you make your tag labels, it would be smart to have a key. I kind of do, but I didn't bring the book out here with me, so sometimes you have to remember who you were that day when you wrote that tag. This pink dwarf aster, the packet picture for this was gorgeous, and I was super bummed because you can see I've got some other aster friends, and then I just have this one little guy. But for a while I had nothing. So when this one little guy showed up, I was so excited. Still excited. I've got more asters, so this is salmon aster. Got quite a few of these. And then I've got Gomphrena globiosa mixed. This is also going to go in with the amaranth near the dog kennel. Asters are neat. They were new to me last year. They flower in the fall when a lot of other things are dying out. And so it's really nice to have something that's flowering for the pollinators then. So then I switched directions for my seeds. You'll notice that I wanted groups of 3 for all of these. And then for this, I only wanted groups of 2. So I've got African daisy. And then I've got a couple different types of hollyhocks. So I've got champagne, and then, what is that? Creme de cassis? Sure, I will find the seed packet. I have more chamomile. So this I grew to share, which is good because it apparently had a really good germination. What's hiding back here? Oh, moss curled parsley. I was worried that this didn't germinate. This was another slow going one, but I've got a couple of those. That grew really well. I planted that in a microclimate last year on the north side of the dog kennel, so it got morning sun but not afternoon sun, and it lasted all summer. I've got lemon bee balm, and then I've got anise hyssop, however you pronounce this, you know what it is. I'm excited to grow this for tea. I'm pretty sure this one is perennial in my area, and so I'm gonna have to be careful of where I put it so that it's where I want it. This is the end of the greenhouse portion. I am going to take you on a walk outside to show you the status of that, because those are, it's a very different situation. So in here, I've got small green things, yes, but green things. Outside I've got some green things, perennial, that are popping back up. Not oodles and oodles of them, but some. I also have silage tarp on the main garden area. More of this weekend's experience I will put on a vlog. I have been posting more photos on Instagram, more photos being more frequent, not necessarily equal to the volume of video, but you can always go over there, check that out, comment, let me know if you have any questions, anything you want to see more of. I'd like to keep doing these. The thing that I enjoy the most is seeing how everyone fills the space they have. There is a community garden center in the town, and all of the plots there are the same size. They are 20 foot by 25 feet, which is a pretty sizable portion. You pay a $30 fee. They let you use the city water there. You would need to buy like a hose to attach to the hose bib and however you're going to water your stuff. But when you walk through, no one has them planted the same way. No one has the same interests. No one has the same goals. No one enjoys eating the same types of food. There's a college near there. There's a lot of international students. They plant a whole bunch of varieties of things that's just not as common for us in this region. This is the region of like casseroles and hot dish, and all of that is delicious, but it's not the same. It's just a different experience, and so it's really fun. I genuinely enjoy walking through that area and seeing all the different ways a person can choose to fill that space. I am absolutely a veggie gardener, but I also plant flowers because I enjoy being in the space. I enjoy seeing pollinators come in. I enjoy that I can use flowers to eat, that I can use flowers to draw in the insects that I need to keep my crops safe. to distract from the crops that I want to eat, so they eat the flowers instead. All of these things are great. I like them. But I work with plenty of people. I run into plenty of people at the garden center, and all they want to do is grow flowers. I am primarily geared towards growing veggies, but I like to grow different veggies, things that I can't get at the grocery store. We already talked about how I can buy a kohlrabi at the grocery store and it tastes entirely different than how it does when I grow it here in my garden and I harvest it and then I'm cooking it that same night or the next night. Like, the flavor is just unmatched. I can get different types of kohlrabi. I'm trying to grow a giant white kohlrabi, and I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be the size of my face. And I'm looking forward to that because, well, why not? That's pretty cool. Growing things like amaranth, quinoa, we cook with that kind of grain. It's a nice change from potatoes and rice, and which are also good, but that's not the only thing I want to eat. Cucamelons, or Mexican sour gherkins, however you want to name them, they're the same thing. They look like tiny watermelons, and it's really fun when my neighbor kids come over because it looks like a mouse melon, which is another name for it. So those are interesting because you look at them and you expect watermelon because they look like tiny watermelons, but they taste like cucumbers and they have the surface tension of a grape. So it's just, what a weird experience. It's fun. Nasturtiums are necessary for me because they're a trap plant for aphids, but they're also edible. So I can eat the stems, I can eat the leaves, I can eat the flowers, and then the seed pods you can use like capers. So you can pickle those. I drink a lot of tea. I grow more and more things for tea. I grow a lot of spices and herbs. I think I have 3 gallons of dried basil in the basement, and when I made pasta sauce the other day, I used like 3 handfuls with abandon in the sauce, and it was phenomenal. So I grow all of this. I store as much as I can because I enjoy it. I like being able to have an experience when I eat. I like getting cookbooks that don't have recipes that are the norm for my area. And I hope that you enjoy coming along for the ride. What's up, John? Hanging out? Thanks for sharing your space with me. These are some Egyptian walking onions. They continuously self-seed. You can see I've got one there. So I harvest from these as I need to. I purchased them at a farmer's market and I just placed it in water and planted it again. I've got some cleanup I need to do. But I've got a bunch of garlic chives coming back. Potatoes, comfrey, the dog kennel bed. These are covered just to warm up the soil a little bit better. And that one is a bit of an experiment. I chopped up comfrey stalks. Whew, I'm gonna go back inside. Very cold. That bed further south that has the comfrey stalks underneath the silage tarp. I wanted to see what that would do to add to the soil. I don't usually use chop and drop that way, which is where you would chop off vegetation. In this case, comfrey is considered a bit of a minor plant, so it's got a really long root system, digs way down, collects a bunch of minerals and other good things, brings it to the leaves, and when you chop down the leaves, they add that nutrient to the soil. I also cut comfrey leaves and I use them in salves. It used to be known as knit bone. It also used to be internally ingested. That's not a thing really anymore that's advised. I don't know that that study's been repeated, honestly. So, but for salves, it speeds up your cell regeneration. I gave some to a friend. She tried that with bruises she had on her legs, and it sped up the healing on one of those because she did it on one leg first, and the other leg was way slow. So the one with the comfrey solve absolutely improved, went much faster. You're not advised to put comfrey solve on a deep cut. It will apparently heal the top layer of skin before it will heal the bottom ones, so you can quickly secure some debris underneath the layers of skin if you do it on a deep cut. So shallow cuts only, please. Because of how I have the beds with a walkway in the center, the walkway acts as a little bit of a cold sink, and what that means is the cold air is going to sink to the lowest portion of the greenhouse. So in the places where I have the tomatoes trellised over there, I'm just going to tuck the frost fabric around the edges and try to retain the heat in the bed itself. I've got those cloches on the most vulnerable plants anyway, so my goal for taking you on the tour is not to tell you what you should be growing, what you're doing wrong, that you shouldn't use this or that. I am hoping that you are able to look at the different things that I'm doing and maybe use some of that in what you're doing. And if there's a way that you know of that's worked better for you, I'm hoping you can educate me. Because the greatest joy that I get out of this experience is continuously fiddling with it. It's the hobby that never really ends, but is endlessly rewarding. So it's worth it for me. And I hope that if anyone's able to learn something from the things that I'm doing, I want to help them in the way that I've been helped by consuming the metric butt ton of gardening content that I've been consuming for years. So, if there's anything in particular that I'm doing that doesn't make sense to you, you want to know where I saw it or read it or learned about it, let me know in the comments. If there's something that you think would grow really well in my region, I want to hear about that too. And then I am probably going to just take you through all of my garden tours, garden chores, and garden projects this season. I have to show you this. It was really funny. So John the Toad was escaping, kind of. He apparently didn't like being tucked in for the night. What are you doing, bud? He was in that corner trying to shove his way behind that black rock. And he started walking along the edge. Oh, he's so squishy. Look at him!